Everybody, and welcome to the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and I'm pleased to have on not just the AD of New London, the Mystic head coach in terms of for baseball during the NECBL summer season, which is a wood bat league, which I'm sure we'll get into, and also too, he's the head honcho in New London as well, doing various things with PE and such. Phillip Orbe, Phillip, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you reaching out. It's always a pleasure to talk some baseball and get to promote our team a little bit.
Before we get into the Mystic portion, I just want to go back to New London because you and I were just talking a little bit. And I know not just girls basketball, there was a lot of success amongst all sports, right, when it came to both the girls and the boys side. But I do want to talk about the girls basketball season for just 1 second because I was able to call the championship game. 7 players for, and I don't know if it was the majority of the season, the whole season. You mentioned, there was a player out with a concussion for a majority of the season. But what Coach Millsaps and those young women were able to do, not just from the beginning of the season, but through the turmoils of foul trouble and everything else, that was quite an epic season. I think it will be remembered forever.
It was just outstanding. And to be able to have a little bit of an inside look at it and talking to Coach Millsaps, who I do believe is the best basketball coach in the state of Connecticut, male or female, to have a little bit of a inside look at it was just unbelievable. Her way in which she dealt with these kids and knowing that they were low numbers. And I mean, she recruited freshmen or she recruited non-basketball players who were athletes to come in and practice. They did huge film sessions, lifting, they did ice baths, they did everything early morning shooting. And then towards as the season wore on a little bit and all those minutes of those girls were playing piled up a little bit, she pulled back the reins just a bit, and it gave the girls just enough energy to go out and get that done. It was just it was outstanding. It wasn't a David versus Goliath thing. I do believe we had two of the best 10 basketball players in the girls basketball players in the state, so that sure helped. But it was just a masterful job by her, and the girls really bought into it, particularly in a day and age where unfortunately high school athletes want to be coddled and they want to be the sense of entitlement comes, and she's a no nonsense person, and the girls really believed in what she was doing. It was really a great story.
Congratulations again to the girls basketball for New London. It was awesome again to be able to call the game, be able to witness that. I know people in New London probably are still talking about it. Maybe not as much, but probably at least a little bit. Now, I want to get into obviously the Mystic portion, the baseball side, because when you think about summer, I grew up playing summer baseball my whole life. I played baseball all the way through college. And summer baseball is some of the best memories that I've ever had because obviously you just wake up unless you have a job, and then you got to kind of work in between that. But you're able to just kind of wake up, maybe go to the gym, get a workout in, and then go right to be able to play the game that you love. How long have you been the manager of Mystic?
Since 2012. I took 1 year off in 2018. My wife wanted to get to know me again for a summer. That lasted for about 2 months. So I went back in 2019. So including the COVID year, this is my 11th.
So being a part of that, and you've probably been around a very collective amount of talented ball players who I'm sure some have had an opportunity to play at the next level. I love your tweets of I think it's the Shoon Squad. I may be saying that wrong. I hope I'm saying it right.
Schoon Squad, yeah.
I appreciate you say it better than I do. I apologize. Nobody get mad at me. But I think that's awesome that you do that because it shows, because let's be honest, over the course of years, sometimes we forget, who played at Mystic? Who played for Bristol? Who played for this and that? I think you putting that out there and saying when they played or how long they played for the team and seeing their success, I think kind of gives people a little bit of like a remembering type of thing,
I'm not a master of social media by any means, but it's good because when I retweet something like that, and I just go hashtag School Squad 22, or yesterday was School Squad 23. We had Rajay Davis that came to visit, local guy here in Southeastern Connecticut. Spoke to the kids before the game. We actually had to move back our infield outfield because the kids stayed in the locker room talking to them a little bit late. But so I do that just to keep track of the guys and just let them know that we're still there. you build a relationship with them in a very short period of time, 2 months, 2.5 months. And it's a way in which I can stay connected with them. And once in a while, they'll send me a little bit of a text message. Hey, coach, you got to go on this. They put me on there. So it's actually really, really fun to do. I was able to go see Jason Foley, who was a pitcher for us in 15-16 with Sacred Heart out of Long Island and pitches for the Tigers. So I went to Detroit early April and surprised him out there. And he actually mentioned that. He goes, "Are you going to put this on the hashtag School Squad?" I go, "Absolutely, if I get a good picture." So it was actually kind of funny. I'm glad the guys like it and it gets some attention.
You know, the draft is coming up too. I'm pretty sure it's on Sunday, if I recall. And I know obviously everybody wants to talk about the two dudes from LSU, you know, the outfielder, obviously Paul Skeens, who is just a whole world of a talent as far as a pitcher is concerned. But there's many, many more talented players. And I have looked at as far as the projected, you know, typically they're never right once they get past 3 or 4, because then it's like a crapshoot of who's going to go where. But I have seen, and I don't know every single player in the NECBL, but I have kind of looked at some rosters and compared, and I have seen some names in the top 100, the top 200, who, you know, have an opportunity to get picked. Just speaking of, you know, the entire league for a second, how awesome is it to be able to know every single time that you manage a game, both for your team but the opposing team, you could be seeing a couple big time major leaguers. You could be seeing guys who could be on TV in just a couple of years. You just never know. How awesome is that?
It's awesome after the fact. So when we're playing and there's a kid who's just an outstanding player, Newport has one, a young man from Air Force, who I think is going to be probably a 3 to 5 round pick. I'm not going to miss him. I'm not going to miss trying to get him out. But it is great to be able to see the level of talent. You'd be amazed though, some of the most talented guys that are in the league, just for some reason, they never make it out of the minors. And a kid who maybe flies underneath the radar. There's a player for the Cardinals, Tommy Edmond, went to Stanford, played 2 years in the league. He was a good player, scrappy, good player. I didn't never thought he was a major leaguer. So we try to convey that to our own guys. We have a kid played for us back in 15, Jake Myers, who's splits time in center field for the Astros, and he was okay for us from Nebraska. He was a two-way lefty pitcher, hit maybe 300. He was okay, but he made the major leagues through a lot of effort, a lot of determination, and just having the right approach and treating people the right way. So we try to have our guys emulate other people that have done things the correct way, because there's so many, I could just rattle off names of guys who were can't miss prospects that we've seen in this league that you don't know their name because something happened. Either they got hurt, some of it in their control, some of it obviously not under their control. But we just try to appreciate the guys, and there's some. So when July 9th through 12th rolls around, the rosters are going to look a little bit different. We have a couple guys that could get late or could be free agent signings. So sometimes you talk about the draft being unpredictable. Someone going in the second round, they're going there because of financially the team knows they could get them for a less number. A kid might go in the 10th round because they could get him. A kid goes in the 10th round, they might get a signing bonus of $1,000, but the team knows they can get them. Where if you're a free agent, you can only go at $20,000. That's the free agent signing. So it's people could get drafted higher. It doesn't make them better than somebody else who's a free agent. So it's become more of a business, but it is very difficult to predict.
Well, I do know they limited the rounds, so now you're seeing, and now also too because of NIL, you're seeing more players thinking like what you just said, making either 20,000 if I get picked, if I get drafted, or I could stay in college, maybe make more money, do this and that. We've seen it in college basketball. We've seen it. Football obviously is kind of the bread and butter for a lot of programs. And I think you made a great point about how there's a lot of guys who were picked high that nobody even knows about. I mean, I remember telling my buddy, he was over the other day, at a time, mind you, 2 first-round picks were on the same team. Mark Appel, former pitcher at Stanford, and then Mickey Moniak. But for other reasons, Moniak was struggling in the minors. Now he's having success, with his second team, the Angels. Appel, I think, retired at 26, 27 for various reasons. But again, just because you're not first round pick doesn't mean you don't have a shot. And I just want to ask you, as far as when you're coaching these players, right? And I'm sure some of them think like, oh, I have to be in the top couple rounds or I'm not going to get picked. I could be wrong, but how is it when you're talking with them, being like, hey, there's opportunity? I mean, you mentioned Edmund, great. I think a perfect example of a guy who doesn't do anything flashy, but you get picked by the right team or the right team notices you can flourish.
So the Appel kid, I think he was the first overall pick.
He
My
was.
Yeah, he actually played in the league. It was a little bit before my time, but he played in the league. And the other young man that you mentioned, I don't want to butcher his last name, was the St. John's pitcher, right?
Mickey Moniak was the outfielder.
Oh,
Got picked by
gotcha.
the Phillies and then was
Right.
eventually traded to the Angels. Correct.
But again, you never know. And if someone tells you that, hey, yeah, I got a good pulse on this and I'm able to figure this all out, they are not being truthful to you because it's very hard to figure out. This is the guy who my buddy was a coach at the University of Maine, and he had a player for me. And the kid was a freshman out of East Providence. And I said, I can't really take another freshman. He goes, Phil, he's really, really good. I said, I really don't want to take another freshman there. I want an older kid. So I am the guy that passed on Jeremy Pena. So when that pops up, I see Coach Trimper quite often, and he reminds me of that. Back to your question though,
Mhm.
it's we just tell the kids to go out and control what they can control and play the game the right way.
Mhm.
Whether or not a scout sees you as such or doesn't see you as such, it's totally irrelevant. You just have to go out and play. They're going to draft you for who you are. Um, the famous we had about 5 guys in 2 years drafted by the Astros, and a lot of it was sorry about that. And a lot of it was because um, uh, the assistant to the GM and I had a long conversation, and the only thing he asked about was how they treated the host families, if they came in for early work, how are they in the clubhouse. They didn't want to know how far they hit a ball or what their velo was or anything like that. He just wanted to know some of these intangibles because that's probably what makes a ball player. If you look at Roger Davis was in the locker room and you can see the picture on the Twitter feed. Roger is the smallest guy in the room,
Yeah.
but he played 13 years of Major League Baseball, stole over 400 bases, did very well for himself. He's the smallest guy in the room, though.
Yeah.
And, he told a story about a bunch of guys he was a 44th round pick, a bunch of guys who were highly regarded that he just passed because he did something right and someone had a good eye for it. So I never try to predict, and I just tell the kids just control what you can. Go out and have fun. We had a couple of scouts at the game the other day, and guys are trying to throw hard, light up the radar, and I said that's good, but your job is to get people out, and that's what they want to see. They want to see you get people out, not necessarily, wow, he touched 95. Yeah, your 3095 mile fastball was a ball. It had a negative impact on the game. They want to see you go out and compete, and throwing as hard as you can is not competing.
Like you said, coach, like you said, coach, control the controllables. I think I hear that from every high school, college coach that I've ever spoken with, right? As far as in terms of what they do and the players. And speaking of the game, right? And I kind of want to correlate this with how the game is evolving at the major league level. We're seeing bigger bases, stolen bases are skyrocketing. I mean, I saw something on MLB.com where you look at some of the teams that are popping this year, the O's, the D-backs. The biggest thing for them is the stealing of bases, obviously fielding percentage, taking advantage of the rules. I think it was Baltimore only has one batting violation in the entire season. That was the
Wow.
first game. And I think it was Austin Hayes, who actually just made the All-Star team filling in for Mike Trout. So, when I think about that, and I don't know, I apologize. I haven't been to an NECBL game. I don't know if there's a pitch clock. I don't know if there's anything like that. But has that part of the game started to trickle down at all, or no? Am I wrong?
It has to a degree. So it's a collegiate baseball league. We have the second rated league in the country. Cape Cod is the best league. So we've been rated second, I think, for the last like 5 or 6 years. So it's college rules, but except for the pitching is major league. But we don't have a pitch count. I'm sorry, a pitch clock. Those violations, like in college, that you can only throw over to a base. You step off, you got to make a baseball move. We don't have that in the summer, and some of the kids are still in tune with that, so they still do it. But we have not really seen that too much.
Mm.
I'll just give you an example. Instant replay is an interesting one. It's only been around for what, like a decade, right? It used to be people or organizations never taught guys to slide head first. They thought sliding head first was a detriment because you hurt your hand, and so forth. But now with instant replay, you could do like a swim move where if you're going out this way, you take this one back and you come over. So now more of them are teaching that. So, that was something when I first started coaching in this league, I didn't allow the kids to slide head first. Now we do, only because it's getting them ready for these instant replays. And you get called out and you're really safe with a swim move. Obviously, you become safe. So that's just one of the things that we've changed a little bit.
It is shifting also because, again, looking at it, and I don't know about the minor leagues, the major leagues, obviously, there's no more shifting, and we've seen we've seen batting average go up. Obviously, stolen bases we're seeing more action. Is that something that is allowed in the NECBL? And two, is that something that or rather, is something that the league does as a whole, or no?
The league's actually gone away from it a little bit. It is allowed. Sorry, that was the original question. It is allowed. We do it. I still do it. We have a young man, I don't want to say his name, that we got in his head a little bit. He's a pull side righty. So, we shifted on him pretty good. So now he tried to bunt the other day for a hit against us, which, okay, you can bunt. I'd just rather have you bunt than some of the parks we play at are pretty small. We play at Dot Stadium. It's a graveyard out in the outfield. But we were at his place, and which is a short field, he tried to bunt for a hit. And my bench coach looked at me. I looked at him. He goes, "You're in his head." I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." So I think he has the first couple games he tore us up pretty good, but he's in a little bit of slump. So we get a lot of data. We have TrackMan and Synergy, so we get a bunch of data with different graphics and information. So we do use that as best we can. So the shift is one of the things we still do incorporate.
I think that's, take advantage of the rules while you have it. And I think it's good to be able to utilize that. I remember doing a Yale game during the spring and it was on ESPN Plus, and it was awesome to be able to see the metrics of that and seeing Coach Ham, who was in his first season with Yale, being able to, and I personally, because again, I didn't know if the rules trickled down from the major leagues to the college level. So being able to see them early on, I saw players shifting and I was just looking and I was like, oh, okay, so the rule didn't come down yet. Okay, now it makes sense. But seeing it utilized, it obviously works for a variety of reasons. Like you said, the one young man who you're in his head and probably will be for a while, because now instead of trying to go yard, bunting instead. Take your base at first if you have to. Rather see you do that. I want to look at the pitching side, right? For Mystic primarily, I mean, is there anybody that has kind of, and you can name as many people as you want,
Sure.
who have kind of really been popping this year? And maybe who came into what is a shortened camp before the season starts that maybe you didn't think would pop this quickly?
Sure. So we are currently third in the league in pitching. Some of it's a byproduct of playing at the Dot Stadium. So we have a young man that's in his third season with us. He's from North Stonington, Connecticut, Wheeler High School, with a graduating class of probably about 40 kids. They have it's one of the smallest high schools. He goes to Fairfield, Bowen Baker. He's been with us 3 years and he's really progressed. He went from like the 18th man on the 18th man staff to now he's one of our top two pitchers, left-hander. He's up to about 90, 92, but really does a great job controlling the zone. My apologies if I get the stats wrong. He's at 19.2 innings, has struck out like 23, has only walked 2, has only given up like 10 hits. He should be able to go back to Fairfield in the fall and really compete for a starting job there. We have another lefty from Georgetown, Everett Catlett, who actually just pitched last night on short rest. He's also dominating. He's up to about like 94, 95. And then we have a bunch of relievers that come in and really, for one inning, really blow it out. And their RPMs on the TrackMan are up in the 2800s on their curveballs and sliders. And, they're in the low to mid 90s too. So there's a bunch of guys, but every team, no, I would say every team, most teams are the good teams, they have that. We're currently 13-10. I think we're fourth in the league or third. And there's a bunch of teams. We played Newport the other night in Newport, Rhode Island. If you've ever been in Newport, it's that small little dinky field that's right in downtown across from the transportation center. they threw a bunch of dudes who were up like 95. Some kid was blowing like 97, 98. And, our kids, to their credit, really dug in and tried to grind out some at bats against those kids. But back earlier, you were talking about, seeing these guys. And, it's just the amount of talent now. It used to be no one threw 90 miles an hour. Now it's everyone throws, not everyone, a great deal of people throw 95 miles an hour. It's a sight to behold for sure.
No, Philip, I really appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun being able to talk with you about Mystic and obviously just the overall NECBL, which I think a lot of people, if you have an opportunity to be able to go to a game. I mean, obviously Martha's Vineyard, I know is a little bit of a hike. You mentioned a couple other programs as well, but if you have an opportunity, go to Mystic, be able to check out the team because there's a whole lot of talent. Before I let you go, one last question. As we enter the dog days of the summer, and I know we get into that kind of middle to end point of the regular season, and I know when I was calling games for Bristol when they were at the time in the FCBL, I remember my last year, what the starting pitching staff that we had was not the starting pitching that, or even pitching rather, that we didn't have at the end of the season because of obviously injuries, innings limits, a bunch of factors. So for you and your pitching staff, rather your staff, right? How are you able to kind of work through that, knowing that you may lose some guys, not because they want to leave, but because they have to for college reasons or innings limits and so on?
So you make sure your cell phone bill is paid. Earlier, that was a little thing I got was from a pitcher. So the draft league has just ended because the draft is about to start. So there's a bunch of arms that are coming from the draft league that don't think they're going to get picked that are looking for spots. So I'm actually worked a little bit this morning. I have some work to do tonight to try to bring in a couple arms. So we don't press our guys too much. Like I said, the two lefties who are probably our two best starting pitchers, they're both at like 19 and 20 innings. They won't go more than 40 for the summer. We have a bunch of guys who are at like 10. I just think it's managing the arms. Like guys don't throw on back-to-back days. If you throw 20 pitches, you usually have 2 days in between throwing in a game. So I think a lot of it has to do with just limiting how much they're getting out there. Now, guys want more innings, and I always say, be careful what you want because it's going to happen. So we play 13 games in the next 12 days after today. We did this interview on my off day, so it's coming, and I keep telling the guys it's coming. So guys, oh coach, can I throw one more inning? They throw four. They want to throw another one. Can I throw another one? I'm like, nope, we're going to so and so. Now I'm going to have to ask them, hey, we need you out there. Can you go another inning? It's going to get totally reversed. So I think a lot of times kids leave a little bit earlier than we want them to, but if the workload is a lot, they're more likely to do that. So we just try to make it manageable, a lot of mouths to feed. So we have, I think it's about 18 guys on the pitching staff. So with 6 games a week, typically you can maneuver that. There are teams in Bristol and also in Danbury. If
Yes, the
anybody
Danbury
wants
Westerners.
to go,
Yes.
yeah. Bristol's actually right now they're both in the same division. I think Bristol's leading that division, but I think they're 500. But they have a very talented team. Danbury actually has a couple of really good young kids too. So
Yeah,
it's
Danbury,
good baseball.
my former teammate at Albertus, which now the former coach at Danbury is now the head coach, and
Ian,
Coach
yeah.
Rashford. My former teammate Mike Hughes is the pitching coach for the
Okay.
Danbury. So that's how I know obviously of him, and I know he's doing great work there. And thank you for mentioning. Obviously, I mentioned Bristol. I forgot to mention they're in the NECBL. They have been for a couple years, and then the Danbury Westerners, also a very very good program, have produced a whole lot of talent, and obviously Mystic has as well. Philip, I appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun being able to talk with you. Best of luck this season, and good luck with the 13 games in 12 days.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
No problem, anytime. Now, wrap things up in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm ready to find them all. Do what there should, everybody, and be well.